Those were some long intros, by the way. And initially, when I was looking at the minimap, I was like, is MaNa playing Terran? Because I saw two like workers coming out of his base, but one came out immediately early from like his first 12 probes, and the other one came out to make his first pylon. So he was definitely super committed to just coming and blocking this hatch initially. And then he goes and scouts the main base, and while that happened, Reynor threw up a pool first, then a hatchery, which isn't necessarily the opening that you want to go for, but he had to, purely because of what he did. MaNa going for 2 gateways on the low ground. He is bringing it this series, Nathanius.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely an interesting direction to take it. And, you know, as you were talking about, a lot of Protoss players will go for that early block when they send the probe out early on. And then, you know, as a Zerg player, you kind of get your flow a little bit disrupted in terms of you want to take your natural. On this map, those third bases are obviously, with how short the rush distance is, going to make them way closer for an attack. So going for the pool first, being able to get the hatch in your natural, more defensible spot, it's obviously going to be nice for a variety of reasons. The Lings do come out. Is he going to try and make the play on the probe? No, he'd rather get across the map, which I think is a fair point. And MaNa getting the Zealot out, getting the core. He's going to have both gateways available. Still just on that one base for himself. And Adepts are coming out. But, man, how much... this could actually do quite a bit, right? Because it's just against slow Zerglings.
I think so. And Reynor, like, upon going across the map, right? And then finally getting to scout the 2 gateways with his overlord, he's like, oh, hold on a minute. I'm going back home. And being able to pump out that many units and not seeing a Nexus behind this as well, this is extremely committed by MaNa. Yeah. Even the Twilight Council going behind all this too.
Yeah, the Twilight. Oh yeah. As soon as you put that out, I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, oh my goodness. Well, if this was like a ladder game and you were playing like somebody like a lot lower MMR than you, you'd be like, oh yeah, this person feels like, you know, they got to kind of do something crazy to beat me. And it is MaNa, so we know that he has the ability to make crazy things happen and to make some magic work, but he's going to have to really put in some overtime to get this build to do what it needs to do. Because Reynor, you know, with that Overlord, you kind of can see everything. It's not like he built a Stalker to deny scouting or anything like that. And these 2 Adepts thus far, I think what, he's shaved off a Ling, a Zergling. Yes, he's killed 1 Zergling this game so far, but he's going to go into Resonating Glaives and more gateways on 1 base. Okay, let's see it.
This was immaculate defense by Reynor, by the way. Like, I know people might be like, oh, he just put a queen on the Adepts and yada, 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 but that was really well done. And MaNa, oh my gosh. So he's going for really fast Resonating Glaives and lots of proxy buildings on the bottom of the map.
Goodness.
Okay, so this is like his 2-base build, except just purely on 1 base here. This is crazy.
You know, if you sincerely, like, if you're honest with yourself and you're just like, hey, I do not think that I could beat Reynor in a macro game. He is just that good, right? 2nd place, world champion, all that. Yeah, then I can see, you know, if this is one of the craziest builds that he has pocketed, then you know what? Go for it. I got nothing against that. He's going to have a good amount of Adepts. He's going to have Resonating Glaives. There won't be Roaches. There won't be Spines. It's just going to be Zerglings and the Queens. So the potential for this, if he gets the Adepts into a good spot and he gets a couple volleys with those Glaives against the Lings, he could clear them all out very fast.
Oh, look at this by Reynor, by the way. Very adamant about just scouting, trying to find out what's going on. But the Glaives is pretty close to finishing now, and this is a large group of Adepts moving out, 12 to be exact. 3 Spinecrawlers are halfway being finished, but these Adepts are arriving way too soon for them to really make a difference just yet.
Yeah, and he's being a little bit careful with where he wants to shade because he's also able to bully those Lings away to actually get the Spinecrawler denial for the first one. And at the same time, the first DT is being warped in here. So, I mean, your key focus, I think, is you want those Adepts to finish somewhere where they're choked off, right? Like behind the mineral line or in between patches or between buildings, somewhere those Lings can't really get the surface area. But at the same time, is there any detection yet for the Dark Templar that's coming in?
No, and the Spore Crawler is going down now in the natural. Oh, there is one in the main. Okay. And I mean, I don't know if a DT went into the main, but so far, the natural is definitely under siege here, and that is 2 Dark Templars. A Spore Crawler on the high ground is actually going to be in range. Whoa, Adept actually finished a shade into the main base. This is getting dicey.
Yeah, a good amount of the drones are going to get pulled away. He did put the Spore Crawler on the high ground to try and get the vision from by the south side of the hatch, but he wasn't actually able to get the position, and the Adept's kind of shaded over to try and deny it from being able to root. He is trying to focus it down with the DTs, not able to get it though. And 6 drone kills, still no natural. The worker count is very close, but I'm not entirely sure that this has been enough to Muslim.
It definitely hasn't. Like, resources lost, it's actually worse for MaNa, and he's the one base all-inning. And Reynor did a very good job holding these DTs. They're trying to sneak by, but that Spore is very nicely positioned. Might be able to maybe get this Roach for him. I think, like, Reynor's held, and he's now mining way more than his opponent. And even the proxy buildings of his are kind of under siege here. It's definitely problematic.
Yeah, you just burn a couple of his warp-ins there to defend the gateways. The 2 DTs in the natural are dead. One did slip by towards the main, but there was always a Spore Crawler there, so that one's just going to reposition, and those Spores have a good amount of vision range for their detection, so I do believe this DT will die. And now, well, he's just got to start his Nexus, but at the very minimum, even if Reynor had his drone count slowed down, having his natural done means that as he builds workers, he can spread them out. He'll still have a higher income, even with a similar number of workers for that reason alone. And that's going to allow him to kind of jump towards the next stage of this game just a little bit faster, since MaNa kind of invested so much into that. And now his tech is really at risk too. Like that Dark Shrine, there's no knowing that that's going to live for the next few minutes of this game.
Certainly. There's definitely a few moves that Reynor did holding that as well. Like he canceled his third hatch just because he realized how committed it was from MaNa, and I think that was a smart move. Here catches the Adepts on the way to his natural as well. Just the supplies tell the tale of this story so far. 90 against 50. And I know MaNa, like I do credit him for trying here, but it's such a hard position to try and come back from.
Yeah. I have big respect for going for that build, because I do feel that there was certainly the potential there for it to have done the damage it needed. He had the DTs. He had multiple DTs in a base that had no detection. He had a ton of Adepts versus mostly Lings, but the moment where he decided to originally shade in, and this is actually nice, picking up enough drones to actually even that worker count again while he's getting Immortals versus Roach Ling. Like, there is a layer, yes, but we haven't seen anything that looks like it could threaten this particular army composition too much to the point where he could break him yet, and that at the very least is nice. That's something.
Yeah, I think this is getting to a stage where Reynor might be just thinking about throwing everything he has at MaNa, because he got a pretty nice scout off, and he does see that there's not much going on the other side of the map. And back at home, Reynor's economy, it's not super good. It's a tiny bit better than his opponent's, but yeah, that's a lot of red flooding forward right now.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. He's getting the Prism. We have 2 Immortals, but this is still going to be a lot of Roaches to have to get through, and I would be surprised if there were no Ravagers added in at any point either. Yeah, so it's not going to be as simple as just shoot behind a wall and hold on forever. And I do like that Reynor brought the Overseer, because there was a cute DT block put in the wall. He's got a few mixed in with his army. Like, this kind of one of those like Rotterdam situations where, like, just kill the Overseer and get the DTs out onto the army if you can.
This is going to be hard, though. I mean, the Immortals obviously deal a lot of damage to the Roaches, which is all nice and good, but you want to be dealing damage. You want to be slowing down the Zerg on the other side of the map, and the fact that Reynor's being aggressive to, again, be defensive, it's just a nice move by him, and it's smart all around. And now he just kind of oodles on back home, and he's got his creep spread going, and he's got that static defense that he saved up from earlier as well to support the new bases.
Even invested into a second cybernetics core, because seemed like he was certain that he was going to lose the one in his natural wall, and obviously that's a very crucial tech structure to have. Ferries the Archon over the wall since it cannot fit through the choke point, but you know, the Immortals, the Archon, solid direction to be in. I do find going for this blink here is going to be interesting to see how he deals with, like, if there's enough. If there's just too many units, it's very hard to do that type of micro while you're juggling with the Prism, but it's going to be 1 Immortal, 1 Archon drop. Certainly is, and seeing this large Zerg force kind of in the middle of the map, kind of going like,
your
I'm
way.
Going home. He's like, I'm okay.
Not sure about this journey, you know, maybe, yeah, I'll head back home, and he's getting a Robo Bay behind this. I would guess this isn't for Colossi, and it's more for, like, Disruptor in a Dream.
Yeah, he needs the M canning disruptors now for the comeback against this army. I think another point that we haven't really hammered home is this is like the shortest rush distance map in the pool. It's one of our shortest like rush distance maps in a very long time. So getting those units over there, especially with the creep spread to deny that third, is a lot easier than on other maps. And that alone is also going to have an impact. And how is it MaNa going to get a third? Like, we're seeing his main base now. It's like almost mined out. Only a couple of very small mineral patches left. But you've got to take your third against a Reynor who has 12 Ravagers ready to spray down those vials on your Nexus every time you try to start it.
Yeah, this is a third that isn't going to go up for some time. And oh, leaving the Immortals behind. I mean, there is a Warp Prism there, and he uses it well. Nice force fields as well. The Biles, he doesn't give a damn. He's just marching on through, keeps eliminating the force fields. They are nicely placed by MaNa, and in fact, most of the rogue shield is gone, but the Ling swoop in from behind. MaNa's army is evaporating over here, and even the Biles landing on the Immortals. Reynor takes a pretty darn convincing game one.
Yeah, well done by Reynor there. I mean, you're up against quite a strong build. Like, I mean, what MaNa did, I think you could kill so many Zerg players with, and surely some people's latter days will be ruined today by those of you trying to pull that build off, or perhaps you'll ruin your own days trying to do it and failing. But that was certainly a decisive start to the game where he really wanted to try and get that damage done, but couldn't make it happen. And you can just kind of see when you let Reynor do his thing, when he gets any space to breathe, you know, he's like one of those super organisms that just uses that oxygen more efficiently and becomes this giant monster and kills you.
Definitely. And a lot of the stuff that Reynor did, it makes it look so easy and so simple. Like even just holding off those 2 adepts early on with the queen and like the 8 or 10 lings. And it's like, okay, not only did not one drone die, but just one ling from an attack that's meant to hit so early that it's kind of difficult to hold. Yeah, it was just all around very nice play. And this is what makes Reynor scary. He can wrecking ball you. Like you really can. If you let this kid get going, he's just going to have more units than any other Zerg you've ever played because his macro is that phenomenal.
Yeah, it's disgusting is what it is, the Muslim. He's one of the top players in the world for a reason, and he's earned that respect over a good period of time. As we are in the lobby for Everdream for map 2. Gonna have a little bit more room to work with, but certainly with those maps that don't have the ramps leading into the natural, like early attacks or anything like that, are always going to be something that you have to have on your radar. So we'll just have to see if MaNa has any more tricks up his sleeve, or if he's going to try to take this one a little bit more towards, you know, the average PvZ build. If we're going to have something a little less wild than that, one base at, you know, 6 minutes situation going on.
Yeah, I do like that MaNa brought that to the series, though, right? Because now he's showing Reynor, like, I will do anything to try and beat you, just so you know. And this is a best of 3, okay? And anyhow, spawning in the bottom left-hand side, playing for Team Clash, it is Reynor.
And his opponent in the Northeast, the blue Protoss player, he is MaNa. Yeah, you make a really good point.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say it's MaNa's first map loss of the group stage, by the way. He was 8-0 in maps before this happened, before he went up against Reynor. So that's also probably why he was fighting so hard to kind of retain it, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy that, you know, we have both of these players come in without dropping maps yet, right? Like they're just absolutely dominating the entire group and then hitting each other. And I just want to echo your point before as well, where you're like, I am happy that MaNa brought that to the series, because I feel like it's like a caster trope that you're like, oh yeah, well, you know, he's like technically rated like 700 MMR higher than him or whatever, right? Like if you're when you compare Serral to like almost anybody else, or Reynor to almost anybody else, you're like, he's kind of got to do something crazy. But then they do something crazy, it doesn't work, and you're like, should he have done that? And I'm like, no, he probably should have. Honestly, like if you're gonna sit back and say, yeah, no, I'm gonna go for a quick Nexus, and I'm going to try and Archon drop Reynor and go into Immortal Trust. Like, no, like he's right. Like he's on that level where trying to play standard against him is probably the worst thing that you can do. Even if he's good at holding cheese, like his macro game is just, you know, it almost feels unfair when you play against him. Like that's just how good he is when you watch him play. He's always got units everywhere on the map. He scouts everything. And that's one of the reasons why he's so terrifying. So that's my long-winded way of saying, I agree with you, Ben. I'm happy that MaNa's thrown some crazy stuff into this series.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like there's cheese, and then there's super mature cheddar, like one base Protoss, like that was. And I like throwing that into the mix is, I do love it. It does scare you for the rest of the series, which MaNa has shown that he is very much a series player. Like before, in one of his series against the Laser, he showcased the same opening and what looked exactly the same, but it went off in a totally different direction. So it's always beautiful to see that these players, it doesn't just come down to how fast you are or how quick you are or how good you are at a particular style. we've had legends in the past, like MVP. They are such good series player, and that's what really makes them.
Yes, very. You know, I feel like, and obviously as someone who's competed at pretty high levels, or I'd say the highest levels yourself, and, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things that I hear about a lot, right, is there's kind of like that volatility that players are concerned about in best of threes, where like if that, you know, that quick bop it build does get you, then all of a sudden you're one mistake away from being eliminated 2-0 because the best of three can be so punishing, which is another thing I like about the round robin group style. Like you can't just get bopped twice and then be out, but it does kind of add to that level of stress that you don't really have, like, oh yeah, you know, I've got, you know, 2 more games possibly that I would need to lose to get eliminated here.
Yeah, your safety net's gone. And then it's like, oh my God, he's done one crazy thing. Like, what's going to come next? Nice Evo bait block, by the way. Like, it's just these little things that Reynor does that means he doesn't lose out. Like, somebody out there is probably like, well, actually, the Muslim, he does lose a few minerals for cancer. I don't care. He didn't lose any drones, which is way more important. By the way, going for the Adept Glaives again, but obviously a different opening this time from MaNa. And this is what I saw from him against a laser, except it has a lot of variations behind this. And this is the opening that a lot of the Koreans brought to the scene by storm, like Zesta coming second at Katowice. It was pretty much this exact build.
Yeah, I love seeing strategies like this. That I think an opening, I don't know that it would be like the exact same one, but it was one of the reasons I really liked watching Neeb's games over the years, because he's kind of been doing stuff like this for a while. And you have that really big potential to do game-ending damage early on, like if you smell blood in the water, but at the same time, it's not quite as committed of an all-in, say, as game number 1 in this series. He has the expansion, he has tech that he can work with and transition with.
Yeah, it's a really punishing build, because if you don't respect it, it can spiral out of control very fast, and then the Protoss can make it an all-in. But this is something that Protoss can very comfortably macro out of, and if his opponent overreacts to it, then he's just ahead economically. Because if we look at the worker count, he's at 37 against 39. That was a ballsy warping. Oh, wow. Nice shade.
So he used it to bait for the shades to go by the third base, but, you know, Reynor gets the drones out of there. There's nothing there to kill. He's going to poke at the hatchery. He's going to chunk down half of the hit points, but that does not win you a game of StarCraft, not yet at least. And he's actually not been building probes for quite a while, Benjamin. He's been sitting on 37 while getting the Immortal out and adding in just, you know, those extra warp-ins off of the Prism. So I feel like he could still be powering up to try and turn this into a big, like, Adept Immortal attack.
Yeah, I don't know what he's kind of looked into. He was supply blocked for a little bit of time, actually, which kind of sucked for him. And, I mean, he was doing a lot of fancy stuff, like warping into the main, shading into the third base. But so far, Reynor's been holding very well. But the Queen goes down immediately, which is nice. Keeps the shade here, or rather the Adepts here. And the supplies are pretty close. Reynor trying to do some damage back at MaNa's base with this Ling run by, but MaNa does hold with some nice warp-ins. And, we do see that MaNa, he's not going for that third base, realizing there's too many Lings on the field. 4 more gates coming down.
Oh, yeah. And we do have roaches being added, but that is why you get the 2 Immortals. And I believe the Prism has gone home. Okay, he's just going to rally those Immortals out. They are kind of exposed. It's kind of dangerous seeing those Lings shark around, but they won't find them. So with these extra gateways, he is going to try and hammer this home with just a crap ton of Adepts. He's going to try and flood him with those Resonating Glaive Adepts, and they do have good damage, but very short range. Let's see what he can get done. Throws the shade towards the natural, trying to pull some of those units back as he gets to work on the Spine Crawler. The Immortals make short work of it, and the Adepts clear out these Zerglings with no trouble at all. Lings are trying to backstab onto those Immortals. He does have the Prism there to support. Going to warp in 6 more Adepts in the middle of this fight. The Queens cannot really get close enough to get rid of that Prism. He does try to move the Spine Crawler at the same time, but it is still standing strong to Muslim.
There is so much mana here, and I mean, Reynor's still slightly ahead in supply, but this army is just crafted to defeat Ling Roach. I mean, the Immortals deal with the Roaches, the Adepts deal with everything else, it feels like, and Reynor, he's piling out a lot of units, but his third base has gone down, and MaNa, he is just going forward still. This is so much Protoss right now.
Yeah, I will say, a little bit of a mistake there. He did actually click that Warp Prism back towards his army, and it did get killed by that Spore Crawler right before it died. So the reinforcements are not actually here. Some of the steam coming out of this push, but he does have so much left over. He is getting tremendous amounts of damage done to that drone line, but he's pulling the rest of the Immortals back. He's waiting for the new Prism to arrive so he can try and punch this one in.
Damage has been done, though, I feel, right? Like, all the creep spread is sent back packing, and the third is down, which is kind of the ultimate goal. But he's still going for it, and I think that's the right call, honestly. The Zerg is wounded.
Yeah, I don't think there's any situation, really, where players are like, yeah, I'm happy to be a Zerg on the same number of bases as my Protoss or Terran opponent. It's like, no. And now the economy is going to tip very heavily in the favor of MaNa. You've got those extremely cost-effective Immortals, the Adepts, the Warp Prism micro ability at the same time. He's trying to get that layer. He's trying to get more Lings and Roaches, but I do not know how he will ever be able to crack this, especially with the force fields being added. It's not like he had a lot of bios to begin with to work for on this attack. And as more Adepts come in, Roachhorn's dead. Like, he can only build Lings now, right? That's it.
Yeah, and I mean, they're not going to cut it against this many Adepts. There's quite a few Ravagers still alive, but this is MaNa just creeping on forward, and there's too much, and MaNa ties up the series. Now there is not one person without a map loss in this group.
And this series just looking absolutely fantastic. I'm super stoked to see how it ends. Let's get to that break real quick so we can get back for game number 3 of MaNa versus Reynor.
Welcome back again to the DreamHack StarCraft 2 Masters. This is already pretty awesome. Like, this is the second series of the day, and they're already going the full distance, Nate.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I mean, this is exactly what I was hoping for. Like, regardless of how it ends, I wanted to see MaNa be able to pull off one of his sexy attack aggressive builds, and he was able to do that in game number 2 after trying an even wilder version of it to start. But we're moving towards a more macro focused map, right? We're going to Eternal Empire for game number 3. It's going to be decided on a map that has a lot of good defensive setup positions as well as a very long rush distance.
Yes, it certainly does. And if you're one of these players, like I've got to be feeling, if you're Reynor going onto this map, it's definitely one that suits you a little bit more, I feel. But anyhow, spawning in the top right, playing as Blue Protoss, it is Team Liquid's MaNa.
And his opponent spawning in the bottom left, we have the red Zerg player. It clashes Reynor.
I think it's always worth pointing out some things that these players are doing at the start. So MaNa's been going for one of his first probes to scout immediately. And Reynor this game, he didn't make an Overlord at all. He went for the 14 extractor trick to go up to 15 out of 14. And then went for the hatchery. So it was like one of the fastest hatcheries you can go. So MaNa's kind of sneaky, I'm going to probe block you, was then thwarted by Reynor, kind of like damaging his economy a little bit, but actually getting down the hatchery on like where he wants it. So a little bit of like mind gamey stuff going on, but that's always lovely to see in StarCraft 2.
That is actually quite an interesting way to deal with it, right? Though, like just to be able to make sure that you don't have to have your hatch moved. Because I think one of the, you know, as far as this map conversationally, I don't think it usually becomes a discussion about the natural. But if your natural was blocked, right, like that third base position is usually a target for the block, because taking any other base as your third is usually really difficult because of how far away they are. So getting the natural secured like that just kind of, I guess, gives you that little bit of comfort space to at least be able to play from the position that you want to be in, even if you had to give something up to get it. Also, this probe getting bullied.
Initially, I thought this probe was sent over here because he wanted to try and fake that he was going for a cannon rush. But then it just kind of sat there and just kind of got like love tapped to death. Yeah. Sad end for the probe.
I've never heard it described like that. That's yeah, well, you know, that's why we have certain words for reasons, you know what I'm saying? Because we have the cybernetics core finishing up. We'll see where MaNa wants to take this game as he kicks off his warp gate and gets the adept. So not going for that early stalker for the scout denial like before. And I guess it does hurt, right? Because he sent another probe out on the map, and it will surely die. It's always weird watching how it works, because the probe barely moves slower. So the Lings are like, okay, never mind. I guess it lives.
And MaNa's going for a totally different opening so far. Like, we've been seeing him love the Twilight Council. So I remember thinking, is a lot of his build with the Twilight Council down to getting the hatch block and then having the natural be made at the third base location, kind of like spreading out the Zerg a bit more, and then the Adepts can shade between the bases easier? Like, it absolutely could be. That would be one thing that I would love to know about him. But here he's going for a totally different play with the Stargate.
Yeah, I love that he's mixing it up too. He's making it hard for Reynor to read what he's doing, because I think especially after the first two games, even though he didn't win game one, that build was still very threatening. And I think Reynor recognizes that he could have lost that game if he made one misstep and it could already be over. So he's probably got Adepts on his mind somewhat, since that seems to be where he's kind of carved out a little bit of an advantage in his control and the composition style, especially because we know, Reynor likes Zerglings a lot. That's where a lot of his big plays come from. So going for the Stargate is a good mix-up. It's gonna change the way that Reynor has to approach this match now and think about the way that he's gonna defend these attacks. And it looks like MaNa's gonna bank up a few in the back of that main, so wants to move in with enough to one-shot, I suppose, the drones when he gets over there.
Yeah, it's cute, right? Like, because a lot of people kind of go for the Phoenix first, just to clear out the Overlord, and then they got the Phoenix to lift up a Queen and deal damage with the Oracles. But right now, Reynor doesn't know for sure what he's up against, and goes for his own Roach Warren, which is a safety Roach Warren against if he was up against Adepts. But so far, totally in the dark.
Yeah, the Lings are going to come over to the third. He's like, oh, okay, you're going for a pretty quick third base. The Adepts, not necessarily going to be able to defend against that, so it will get canceled. You kind of maybe trying to lure Reynor into a false sense of security, but he's going to get the blind Spore Crawlers anyway. I mean, for 99% of Zergs, like, Protoss is going to try to hit you with a Prism or DTs or Oracles or something, or Phoenix, whatever it is. So building the Spores, even if you don't scout it, still makes a lot of sense, but they are going to be done in time for the Oracles. Let's see how much damage MaNa can get done.
So he did a few things, actually, did Reynor. He cancelled his Roach Warren upon, like, kind of killing the third, and was like, okay, I'm going to make an Evo chamber. So he made a lot of calls here, realizing he's not going to get adepted or anything like that. But then he sussed out that he was against something else that he needed spores for. So I don't know what Reynor sniffed out exactly, but he was bang on the money there. And what a call by him.
Yeah, that's the power of being as good at StarCraft as Reynor is. Like, there's just so many things constantly going through your mind when you're playing StarCraft, and Reynor plays on that level where he's processing this information at speeds that are difficult for us to see where the decisions are even coming from, because he's just that damn good, the Muslim. So the Oracles are going to make their way back towards the natural, looking for some purchase. Again, he's kind of got the weak one up front. Got to be careful, as the shields on that one do go down, brings the healthy one back. So 3 drone kills there, and nothing crazy. Still 60 to 49, but Warp Prism, Charge, Templar Archives. I mean, it looks like MaNa is going to try and play this one out as a long macro game. kind of leveraging, I guess, the advantage of Eternal Empire for a more defensive style.
Yeah, like there's not really any opportunity for either one of them to die, right? Which is cool. I do like the melee upgrades for Reynor, because melee helps the Lings, helps the Banelings. They eventually can one-shot probes and stuff, and Banelings against the real mush of the army against Protoss as well is nice. Reynor's getting up a 4th base here. His economy is definitely looking good, and MaNa, this is very old school Protoss, I feel. Like Oracle Harass into the Archon drop.
Yeah, and that's like a classic, right? Like that basically is that's your Caesar salad of Protoss builds these days. Like that's going to work for anybody. And the Oracle does try to come up here with the stasis trap on the natural. It's going to grab 2 of the drones with that. So nothing crazy, but you're at least forcing the drone pull as well, which is going to delay the economy that they'll get, even if they're alive. And we all know that potential, especially if you have a lot of Zerglings, like the Archons can do a lot of work. Now, I do feel they're kind of stretching a little bit, bringing the Zealot Warp-ins here. If that Prism gets too far away from the Archons and they get surrounded, losing those is really terrible. But he wanted to commit a little bit more than usual to trying to pressure this base.
The Queens are doing a good job of tanking the Zealot damage. And whoa, he just lost one of his Archons to the Lings at the back there. So Reynor's done a good job of splitting up MaNa's army and just his focus a little bit here. 2 drones are the only thing to go down so far for him of any super value. And
that's painful.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's out of range.
Oh, he missed. Oh, that's a big oof right there. So you don't have the 2 Archons anymore, right? So you kind of lose that one-shot splash ability against the drones, which takes, even more wind out of the sails, and may at some point, I guess you can kind of go back up through the natural. There we go. There's a good stasis trap. That's what you're looking for.
This is kind of like if at first you don't succeed, try again, The Oracle's motto. Does get a Queen as well for his trouble, sticking around, but Reynor's secured that 4th now, and his gas count's getting pretty high. What's his Roach count at? 18? That is a lot of Ravagers and Banelings that can come out onto the field with 1k gas to spare.
Yeah, he has a lot of options in front of him, and I think, we're looking at how he's got this lair. He's had it for a little bit now, but we haven't really seen a tech choice from it. It's just been for the upgrades for these existing units, which leads me to believe we may see that attack you're talking about. He does start a Spire, but while mostly just cranking out Zerglings and Banelings to Muslim, I think he's kind of just setting up his fallback plan if he's not able to cancel this 4th base or kill him here.
Yeah, like those Oracles, even though, we talked about the missed stasis, they have been annoying. Like, they've been a true thorn in his side, and they're still both alive. So they've been picking off drones here and there. But Reynor, he's starting to use that gas now. We see +2 finishing, 6 Ravagers on the way, Banelings being morphed in as well. But kind of uncharacteristic here, because he definitely wants to spend his money getting a little bit supply blocked to his Reynor, which is unfortunate, because I feel that this is kind of when... Oh, Baneling speed hasn't even started either.
Yeah, that's probably the most interesting thing here. And actually, a couple of these units get baited out, it looks like. An Immortal just dies, and that is super unfortunate. He needs everything he can possibly get to help defend against this. You even kind of want these Oracles to come home, as they're the only air to ground that can kind of, with impunity, focus down some of these Ravagers or Banelings. Now, the Banes are going to crash through the natural, trying to get towards the mineral line. Even without Bane speed, only one of them needs to reach the probes. They have +2 attack, so we know how dangerous they can be. 6 of them, bye-bye.
Banelings, when they're slow, they look so happy and friendly, just like, hello. Just going to say hi to
I'm just waddling. I'm just waddling. Don't worry about me, guys.
Just wants a little hug,
I'm just a little Baneling guy, just running around, blown up.
Oh, look at Reynor's money, by the way. Like, 1,800 minerals, 1,500 gas. Like, I know he's being crazy and doing a lot of damage with these attacks and stuff, but it almost feels like he's a little bit thrown off for some reason. Now goes for an infestation pit. Now Baneling speed starts.
Yeah, I feel like forgetting Baneling speed is... It's hard to imagine a world where Reynor wanted to attack with that many Banelings and not have Baneling speed, but I would give that credit to MaNa for causing that chaos that maybe he just didn't notice. At the same time, though, while he has that Stargate, I do not believe he is aware that he's about to have 17 Mutalisks bringing that pressure. And we know Archons are not really reliable against them because they don't bounce between the bases as well, and they usually can't get through the natural wall.
No, that's a big deal, but Reynor did blow up the natural wall.
I guess it helps.
Yeah, which helps. But now there's like another wall being made. And the life of MaNa is about to get super darn hard, because The Warp Prism can help maneuver the Archons around, and he is going to see what he's up against now with this nicely placed Observer, but that is a huge flock of Muta coming right at him.
And there is nothing here right now to muzzle the Mutalisks. They're going to get free farm on these probes. Like you were saying, he needs to bring that Prism back, honestly, for helping to move the Archons around between this. He doesn't have Blink, so the Stalkers can't really chase. And one Stargate trying to trickle out Phoenix, I'm not sure is going to be the ace move here either.
That was a solid storm. And now he's getting to the main base, dealing with a lot of these probes, and MaNa's actually launching a counterattack, but that is so much Zerg there. 52 Lings being produced, and he's dealing attacks in multiple spots, even maneuvering the Spore here to deal with the Warp Prism, but MaNa's getting smashed in 3 places at once right now by the young Italian Stallion, and he's not slowing down anytime soon by the looks of it.
No, he is not. I mean, the Muta count is being bled out decently. I did feel like the Archons on the aggressive side got into some good chokes in the natural, but once it's all been cleaned up, MaNa does have his 4 bases, but he needs to the problem with dealing with this type of stuff is you sometimes get forced into investing so much into like static defense, like, oh, I need batteries or cannons to stop Muta harass so I can actually leave my base. But then, you know, that cuts into your army production. You look at the supply and it's not all in roaches anymore. So it's not like this mega inflated supply. Like, no, this is a devastating army that can absolutely clap you if you're not prepared.
Or even if you are prepared. This is so much Zerg coming out. Like, +3 melee upgrades on the way, along with Adrenal Glands. And behind all this, I think the craziest part about this for me is the fact that Reynor's going up to 6, or he is on 6 bases right now.
Yeah, he's just got so much money. I was impressed that MaNa held his bases as well, but those Banes. +2 Banelings to Muslim. They are known. They are infamous.
They certainly are. And the probe count is 43 to 86 drones. And MaNa, he's tried. Like, he really has tried to slow down the growth of Reynor, but it's just been so difficult / impossible to do, it seems.
Yeah, he's got half the workers now, and it's not getting any easier. Another torrent of Lings floods over towards the 4th base. We do have those storms, and he has been landing them very well, but at the same time, keeping the amount of units there to deal with this is still so hard. Those Banelings still able to blow up on the probes despite the push being cleaned up. Uses his Stasis Ward to try and cover that tiny choke point. That's one of the reasons why, you know, a lot of us will say Eternal Empire is a pretty solid defensive map with that rock there. That is a very difficult choke point to push up, which is helping MaNa get time to stay alive. And since the Muta count has dropped, it's not like he can't try to focus back on the ground, but that really becomes the question is you have to be able to get those storms, deal with the Banelings, and let the Immortals and Archons just kill everything else.
Yeah, MaNa, despite being under the onslaught of Reynor, he's still in it somewhat. Like, he's producing 4 probes in a time. He truly is a fighter, but Reynor's just looking for any spot where there's any remote weakness by MaNa. And when you're spread out to 4 bases and you're against this much Zerg, it's pretty easy to find. And Reynor, he's hitting all the high tier upgrades now. Adrenal's done, Muta's in the main base, Lings and Banes in the 4th, and just continuous Ling production. And he's even got a Greater Spire done behind all this.
Yeah, the Greater Spire is kind of like, you don't have a transition point if Reynor just shows up with like 10 Broodlords. The Stargate is there, but the money's not there. It's for 2 more and a Fleet Beacon at this stage in the game with the amount of damage he's taken. And if he could stabilize, like, you know, you want to believe in the dream because it's a Protoss that he did not lose the 4th base, but there's just been so much harass coming in. That wall at the natural again. He's working away at the rocks. He's going to open the gates for the rest of these units to stream in. Big Storm's going to try and come down to drop the Zerglings, but he's going to let the Banes crash into the Archons. And I mean, MaNa is somehow still he's not dead yet. I'm very impressed. I'm not going to say he's ahead at all, but I'm pretty impressed that MaNa's been sticking in it as well as he has.
Yeah, I'm impressed with that too, Nate. And yeah, those are some really nice storms. Like, Reynor, if he stuck around for any longer, all those Lings would have absolutely been blitzed out of this world. But Reynor, he's getting a few Corruptors. Like, yeah, he's getting ready for that next Hex switch. He is super duper rich, but MaNa's like, he's definitely on death row here. Like, it's not looking good for him.
Oh no, of course, I 100% agree. It is an interesting engagement to watch as you have MaNa with 9 Archons realizing, oh my god, yeah, the guy who likes to mass Lings, who has like 69 Zerglings right now on the map. Well, I guess if my Archons fight against these Zerglings, they will win. 9 Archons will beat almost any number of Zerglings.
Yeah, especially with the upgrade, so like they one-shot the Zerglings pretty damn easily, but this is not the fight that the Archons want to be taking against the Ravagers with the Bios and stuff. Like, Archons, they're not that mobile, and whenever you're moving as an Archon and you're not shooting, but you're getting shot by Ravagers, it's a rough spot. Lings in every base now, the main taking down pylons and stuff. Ugh.
Oh, Reynor finally does it.